So athletes such as Reggie Bush, Johnny Manziel, as well as other NFL stars, MLB stars, NBA and WNBA stars, never in the history of sports have they been allowed to accept money from their coaches, from people on their athletic staff, or from fans looking to buy merchandise or autographs from these players. And today, I'm going to tell you why the name, image, and likeness deals in the NCAA in high school should not be allowed and why they should backtrack on these before it gets out of hand. So the name, image, and likeness deal, it was first implemented in 2019 and has further developed over the past couple of years. And now not only can players accept deals from other outside companies and endorsements, now as of last year, they can also accept money from their school itself, which now has a budget to be paying their athletic players. So the NIL has changed the college sports landscape forever, for good or for bad. And it negatively impacts the integrity of the sport in the sense that now players aren't going to be looking for the best place to play for them or with the best players that fit their play style per se, or with the best chance to put them in the league or put them in a good academic program which will advance them further in their degree or possibly put them in the professional leagues. So now that players have money on their mind due to this NIL, and we're mainly referring to players at a higher prospect scale that are going to be getting paid with these new laws in place, they're going to be getting offered money from each school that they are offered scholarships from. So this will negatively impact the sport. And as I mentioned earlier, athletes such as Reggie Bush or Johnny Manziel, they have been a part of activities where they're receiving money when they're not supposed to be and using it for their own personal gain when there's other people on their team or other people in the leagues who don't have these same opportunities available to them, leading to the question is it really fair? Are their teammates, do they deserve any more or any less? Now, that's a question you guys can dwell on. So, people have had their legacies tarnished because of this, like Reggie Bush, like Johnny Manziel, and now the NCAA is trying to switch their course and backtrack on what they've done in the past, and they want to right their wrongs, per se, and they want to get the old ideas out of there, and they don't want to be blamed for Reggie Bush and Johnny Manziel anymore. So now what we're seeing, as you've probably seen in the news, now all these athletes right out of high school, and some of them even in high school, are being offered money to either leave high school a year early, which can put their academics at risk per se, or they may not be learning as much as they need to be learning. And not only that, they're now focusing way more on sports when they do get into college because that's where their money's coming from, that's where the paycheck's coming from. So all of a sudden, school falls after athletics to these players who are being offered these big contracts. So as I was saying, I was talking about Reggie Bush earlier. Chuck Shilkin in the Los Angeles Times, his article goes into depth on Bush's situation and how the family of Reggie Bush in 2005, or leading up to 2005, his Heisman season, Reggie Bush's family accepted travel expenses, rent expenses, as well as straight cash from people within the athletic department of USC, University of Southern California, with the goal of keeping Reggie Bush and signing Reggie Bush to the USC Trojans, which he went on to win the Heisman Trophy, which is the best award in college football. And then he went on to be an NFL great as well, which, looking at it from an outside third-person point of view, Reggie Bush most likely never would have ended up at USC if he wasn't offered this money. So in hindsight, offering that money to Bush changed the course of the entire league that year and put USC at an edge that these other teams didn't have, because not all these other teams were participating in these unethical means, if that makes sense. So, as well as their academic well-being, and as I was mentioning earlier, their physical well-being and their well-being and mindset as a whole will be negatively affected if they're focusing on the money rather than focusing on both their academics and furthering their career in sports. So, Elsa Chang, she had an article titled Navigating a New Era for College Athletes, and she goes more in depth on the chronological order of the legalization of NIL in sports. She talks about how in 2019, Gavin Newsom in California, he was the first governor to legalize the NIL. And I believe shortly after that, New Mexico followed. And now, 2025 today, now it's national law where in all these states, all 50 states, it is allowed and legal to be doing these things. So, the opposing argument here is a very strong one, if I'm being honest. Most people would disagree with me, thinking that the college athletes should be paid because they're putting in all this work. They're not guaranteed a career in their pro sport of choice. So why shouldn't they be rewarded for their efforts up to this point thus far? James McKean's article, The Greatest Non-Jumping Rebounder Ever, on the MVCC database, he goes into depth. It's sort of an autobiography type article. It's written by James McKean. It's about his life as a college athlete. In 1966, he was a basketball player for Washington State, and he made a deal with his coach that if they would win this game, his coach would take him out to lunch and buy him a hamburger. So after the game, they won the game, the coach tried to buy this player, James, the hamburger, only for the athletic director to say, no, you can't do that. That's against the law. So as silly as it sounds, and that is a silly example, if I'm being honest with you, because at the time in 1966, how much was a hamburger? Probably $1, $2, if that. So something as small and tiny as a hamburger was still outlawed, still can be punished for. And not only examples like that, but now the NCAA, they want to backtrack on what they've done in the past. They want to right their wrongs is how they are describing it. But Reggie Bush, Johnny Manziel, all these players who have been publicly bashed and their legacies ruined. Some of them, their careers were ruined before they even started. Like Johnny Manziel only lasted 1 to 2 years in the NFL, even though he was a very highly touted college prospect. So these players, their mistakes of the past are going to be forgotten, which will now encourage people and future players to be able to participate in these things. Or they're essentially making behavior that we viewed to be wrong and illegal. Now it's completely legal in the matter of 3 to 5 years, when for 100 years prior, 100 years plus almost, it was never allowed. So in conclusion, I believe that NIL is ultimately a negative thing for not necessarily for players, but for the state of the game, the state of sports, the state of these players' academics, and their educational integrity will be at risk here because of putting money over academics, choosing a school because of money instead of because of their academic or athletic programs. So thank you for your time listening.